I think it's important to get a professional's eye on you before you really start doing any big intervening. And so it's time for Coach Brad to pull up his stool and tell story time. There was a time that I was not all that aware of symmetry, what it really was, and how it related into bodybuilding. And I just thought it was big muscles get shredded, which I obviously could do the latter until I came up with our good friend Alberto Nunez, and I saw what symmetry was, but I couldn't identify it. All I knew was that he had a very small waist, and what I needed to do was to diet harder in order to make my waist as small as Alberto Nunez, not knowing that my structure was that there was no way my bones were going to allow me to get any smaller than a 31-inch waist. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that at the time. And so naturally, what did I do? I dieted extremely hard, probably dieted off some of my muscle. And yes, I came in shredded. And although I had a very good year, I still didn't attain the Alberto Nunez waist because God made my hip bones too wide in order to get there. So it's just a cautionary tale that if you think that you have a lagging body part, or like I thought I could make my waist actually smaller, get yourself some eyeballs on you on a seasoned competitor that's done a lot of bodybuilding shows. Maybe even get a couple, because I had done a lot of bodybuilding shows, and even after years of doing them, I didn't really understand what symmetry was and how and why it was that I didn't fit that mold. Long story short, I wish I had Eric Helms to explain his recent dissertation to me.
On that note, it's funny. Like when I started, I thought symmetry was very left to right. And a lot of people do. And I mean, like if you've ever taken your face and just like gave yourself like two left sides, like it's, generally most people's faces are pretty symmetrical, right? But you look like a totally different person. So to assume that like the rest of our body doesn't kind of sort of follow that trend, right? It does 100%. But I remember I couldn't get over how my right bicep was rounder than my left bicep. Like the differences in like my teardrops, right? And that's just most everyone, I'd say, outside of say muscular tears or like clearly obvious situations. Like I ran into a young kid the other day. He had it's called Poland syndrome. Like he had no idea. I had to tell him what it was, where he was basically missing one of his pecs. And he just thought that he's like, there's something off with my form. Like that's basically what I thought, So symmetry like isn't left to right, and generally speaking, most people are pretty symmetrical left to right, I'd say. Outside of muscle tears or like clearly different development left to right for reasons like the young man I spoke to. But yeah, it's not left to right. It's more so. It's such a vague concept because it's the best way to describe symmetry. It's like a nice melody. It's like a nice song. It's like everything just. As you scan the physique, it just all flows really well together, and it is a combination of everything being well developed, but also the bone structure which it sits on. Right.
Just to echo the point that Berto made about left to right symmetry. That is something that I get more questions about than other types. Like, oh, my right arm's too small, my left leg's too small, my right calf or whatever. And while that is on paper part of symmetry, like left to right, front to back, top to bottom balance, if you read some of the judging criteria, it is something that individuals notice in themselves to a much higher prevalence than judges notice. And just to give you an idea, like one of my arms is almost a full inch bigger than the other. I've never heard a judge mention that I need to work on my right arm size. So really, it is truly the kind of situation where unless you have like a nerve injury, a clinical condition, or like you broke a bone or a muscle tear or like an actual musculoskeletal injury, where that is something that you actually need to address. I'm sure there are cases where someone just has really poor development on one side. Maybe they used to be a pitcher or something like that, but it's incredibly rare. And if you're looking at small differences in tape measures left to right or muscle attachments, in the former case, it's probably not a big enough difference to actually be noticed in the overall physique. And in the latter case, we can't change where our muscles insert or attach anyway, so it's not something to worry about.